Hey, everybody. We're moving right along now in the review. We're up to body systems. Now, remember that all the organelles make up cells, and cells make up tissues, and tissues make up organs, and organs make up systems. And we're looking at the systems now, and we're going to kind of go very quickly through them. Just a quick reminder, here's a nervous system, circulatory system, respiratory system, and digestive system. We have some others to talk about as well. Ready? So let's take it from the top. Starch is too big to fit into your cells. Proteins are too big to fit in your cells. You need to obtain materials for building blocks and energy, but you also must make them usable. That's done by the digestive system. You've got all this long tube and everything's digested, and all the useful stuff is absorbed and brought to the cells. You have your mouth and your stomach and your small intestine, all of which have enzymes. They're all dependent on pH and have different pHs. Those enzymes all break down big things like starch and protein into little things like sugar and amino acids so they can fit in your cells. Next up, we have the circulatory system. The circulatory system moves materials to, from, and within cells. So while it's fine to have eaten a nice big hamburger with a lot of protein, and it's nice to have broken it down to amino acids, it doesn't do you much good in your small intestine. It has to be brought to your cells. Also, breathing in oxygen, wonderful, feels great in your lungs, but that's not where you need it. You need it in all your cells for cell respiration. As in addition, you have your cells making things that need to be removed. So let's look at oxygen. Oxygen, you breathe it in and it goes into your lungs, and then your bloodstream picks it up there at the lungs, and it carries it to every single cell of the body because every single cell needs to do respiration, and you need oxygen for respiration. Meanwhile, every single cell is doing respiration and making carbon dioxide, and your blood, your circulatory system, picks up all of that carbon dioxide at those cells and brings it to the lungs so you can exhale it. All right. Nutrients, you eat those, your digestive system obtains them and makes them usable by nutrition. And those nutrients are picked up at your small intestine, and they're carried to all the cells because all of your cells need building blocks and energy. And so they all need those nutrients. And when you're doing various chemical reactions, you are going to make wastes in all of your body cells, and those need to be removed. And some are removed by your kidneys and some by your lungs and some other things like your skin. Okay, that's the circulatory system. Next up, really important, put some stars next to this one. This one you have to know. Fights infection. So we're talking about the immune system. Now, the immune system isn't like a whole pile of organs all together. This is really essentially your white blood cells. There's some other parts to it, but we don't need to worry about those. White blood cells are essentially your immune system. They're floating around in your blood along with the red blood cells that carry oxygen and the platelets that clot your blood and so forth. But the key thing in there for you to know is that the white blood cells are for fighting infection, okay? And there's some vocabulary that you absolutely must know. So your white blood cells cannot attack your own cells. That wouldn't be good. You'd be killing your own cells. Not a good thing. That's actually a group of diseases called autoimmune diseases, self-immunity. It's attacking yourself. Not good. You want to only attack foreign pathogens. That is, things that cause disease. The word pathogen means viruses and bacteria that cause disease. You only want to attack those. So your white blood cells ignore the proteins on your cells. It goes by all the different cells in your body, and it's like, oh, I know that protein. Oh, I know that protein. And then boom, it sees something, a protein, these little spikes on the outside here that it's never seen before, and it attacks. The foreign protein, the thing on the virus, is called an antigen. The weapon that the white blood cells make that attach are called antibodies. You have to know the difference between those. Now, once you have seen a pathogen and its antigens, and you learn to make antibodies against it, you know forever, which is great because then it doesn't have a chance to make you sick. So we've taken advantage of that by making vaccines. We kill the virus, inject it into the body, and teach your body how to make antibodies. Then, if a strong or live pathogen like that with the same antigens comes into your body, you can attack it because you know how, because you learned when you got the vaccine. So now you produce antibodies against its antigens. Sometimes you make antibodies against something that's harmless. That's called an allergy. It's miserable. One last little note, sometimes they'll ask about transplants. If you need a new heart and you get a new heart from someone, you won't recognize those proteins. They will be foreign. They will be antigens. You will make antibodies against it. And that's called transplant rejection. Often transplants are rejected by the immune system because the proteins are foreign. Okay, moving right along. We have the system that brings in oxygen. Remember I was saying the lungs bring in the oxygen, then the blood carries it to the cells and gets rid of the carbon dioxide. That's your respiratory system and uses the lungs. Next up, your urinary system. It removes urea, salt, and water. It's your kidneys and bladder. It gets rid of waste. The blood comes through and drops off the waste, and they come down and you pee them out. All right. Next, nervous system. That controls activities. So when the world changes outside of you, you don't want your body to change with it. You want to maintain a constant internal environment. You want to maintain homeostasis. To do that, you need something that will react, something that will, when you get cold, will tell your body to warm up, something that will sense the cold and then send the message to warm up, to shiver. That's your nervous system. Something that sees a truck, gets out of the way, runs before you get hit. That's the nervous system. The cells in the nervous system are called neurons. This is a neuron. That's a neuron. And there's a space between them called a synapse. The space sometimes shows up on Regents' questions. It's called a synapse. And the reason they like to teach about it is because if you look, here's the end of one neuron and here's the beginning of the next. That little space right there between the end of one neuron and the start of the next, if I magnify it even more, it has little chemicals that go across and they attach to these proteins on the outside called receptors. They fit into the receptors by shape. All right, so that's the nervous system. You're reacting to the environment so that you can maintain homeostasis. Next up is another system that helps you control your body so that you can maintain homeostasis, and that's your endocrine system. The endocrine system makes chemicals. You need to know the name of the chemicals. Every one of these little glands is part of the endocrine system, and every one of them makes chemicals that are dumped into the bloodstream and travel around. For example, this one right here, this yellow one, makes a chemical called insulin. This one makes one called thyroxine. This one makes one called growth. And those are all different kinds of chemicals that control your body through and travel through your bloodstream. And those are hormones. You should know that hormones travel through the blood and control your body's systems. Okay. Hormones, the one they love to test is insulin. That is made by the pancreas, and it controls the amount of sugar in your blood. Pancreas is right underneath the stomach. It makes insulin. It dumps the insulin into your bloodstream. That tells your cells to take sugar out of your blood, and it controls how much sugar is in your blood. If you cannot make insulin, you have a disease called diabetes, and your blood sugar level is wrong. You're not maintaining homeostasis. Finally, in the endocrine system, one of the things that they test really heavily is how the hormones know which cells to act on. If you make growth hormone in your pituitary gland, you don't want it to make your cheeks grow big. You just want them to make your long bones grow big. So how does growth hormone know to tell your long bones to grow, but not your cheekbones? Receptors. Each cell has its own receptors. So you can imagine that this hormone is growth hormone. This might be a cheek cell. It won't act on it, but this might be a long bone cell, and it will. So if a cell has the receptors, the hormone can attach to it and tell it to act. It's called a target cell if it has the receptors for that hormone. And that is all the body systems that we need to know for the regions.